Thank you for being here. The people that are showing tomorrow and other people that show up today, I don't know how that works. We've been trying to figure this out because our event, if you figured out by now, is Smart Cities Day One, which includes, transportation next, networks, and smart city folks. And then tomorrow is about energy and water and utilities. And then the day after is about infrastructure, but they're all blend over in terms of the themes, right? The last day is more about software, and tomorrow is more about water and energy, and today is about the things that we have talked about today. And I'm looking forward to the keynote next. But I'm supposed to talk to you a little bit about lighting as a service, which is a new concept. And how many of you have an iPhone or a mobile phone, smartphone? Okay, great. So I used to, and we'll go fast on this, but I had the privilege of working at Microsoft for Bill Gates, and I was the first product manager of this thing called Windows. Anybody use Windows? Okay, so I built the first four versions of that, and now it's version 11 or something, 12. I have no idea. Unfortunately, in 2011, I switched to the Mac, but don't hold that against me. Something happened to my code, and once it disappeared, it was no longer important for me to stay with it. Um, but lighting as a service is an interesting thing because the infrastructure that is driving how we make things happen is getting digitized, and obviously that means that the software and the servers and the networking, the ones and the zeros are coming over, right? And I think that the concept of how do you get ESG roaming is you have to deploy blockchain everywhere because you need the supply chains interconnected so you can count the carbon credits and everything. And so I think we're in that journey. The genie's out of the bottle, but it's going to take 20, 30 years for that to come together, right? So lighting as a service is about an interesting challenge. So how many of you have been in a Tesla or driven in a Tesla? And have you gotten to play where you get the fireplace thing going, the screen, and you get to play with the screen when it's sitting there, and it's kind of like a game console thing, right? It doesn't look like a car. It feels different, right? So the smartphone is kind of like this new platform, right? Remember Jobs saying it's a communications device, an internet device, it's a phone, you know. And then, the Tesla and now all the copies of the Tesla are in the similar concept. The car is an experience, and it has all this. It's about the software and the software upgrades and all that. And so there's a third infrastructure that I predicted in 2011, if you go read my book, Advanced Smart Grid, that I would become that at some point. And that is the streetlights. So there are 26 million streetlights in America. And for the most part, nobody cares about them. Nobody even knows where they are. A lot of people own them. TxDOT owns them. The railroad guys own some. Cities own some. Utilities own some. The ballparks, maybe the private parking lot guys own some, right? But it's kind of they're a necessary evil, primarily for safety purposes and lighting at night. So the people that work there or live there or go get a service there don't get mugged on the way to the car. That's about it, right? So, but if you think about it, they're all connected to the grid. That means they have power. And with power, you can do a lot of things. So again, I'm going to skip all this stuff about CMG. So again, the main use is light illumination. You may remember that that's how Samuel Insull and Commonwealth Edison launches Chicago in 1906. I forget when the World Fair was in Chicago, and the first light, city deployed at evening lit up happened. And then, obviously it is used now since then for other cities, but primarily it's, night illumination and safety, right? And the ownership, as I said, is many entities. And the responsibilities include, the energy costs for lighting and the maintenance and repairs and for the lights in the poles, replacement of the light in the poles and the labor costs and, a bucket truck. So, those the light bulb in the lights go for like $150, the fixture. And the light bulb is about $25, $30. But to deploy a truck to replace that light It's a couple guys on a truck, and in New England, that truck roll is $250 to replace a $20 light bulb. So the utility doesn't really want to do that because that's losing money. And so in the end, it's an asset that is sitting there that is doing great things, but it's not doing much. Now, what if I could take you on a journey and I turn this light into a Swiss Army knife, and I put, cameras on it, and I can track, the things going on around it and record accidents or people counting or car counting or things. And I can put sensors, and I can have flooding and humidity and altitude and pressure and air quality and methane and CO2 and you name the sensor, I put it on, and I have Wi-Fi and 4G and 5G and 6G and LoRaWAN and land mobile radio connected to it, and I have a charger and I can have a platform on top, and a drone can come and recharge, and and I have all these things, and now this gadget that is connected to the grid is collecting gazillion data points. So this is what's going to happen, okay? And we call it, lighting as a service because the cities don't have the money to do it, but it's going to happen. So I've been pushing for this vision for a while, and these are the kind of applications and sensors that you're going to put on this thing. And so, I'm here focus on helping you understand the importance of this, because this infrastructure, the digitalization of this infrastructure, and then ultimately the monetization of this infrastructure is going to be needed in order for automation to happen. In order for the smart infrastructure to happen with autonomous anything, vehicles, flying things, what have you, all this other infrastructure on the roadways needs to be intelligent, talking to all these things, because you can't really burden if you listen to Bill Marsh talk about how a car that is autonomous today uses 4 kilowatts, of any given moment. So if it's an hour, 2 hours, 10 hours, and the batteries need to be huge, that car costs like $1 million. Nobody's going to have one of those cars, right? How many of you are going to buy $1 million car to be autonomous? Nobody, right? So how do we, change that, right? So the infrastructure needs to be intelligent. And so the streetlights are everywhere. And there's all kinds of business models to do that and ownership potentials. And so what we're saying is, if there was somebody, a third party, they came in and told the city or the owner of the streetlights, we'll partner with you. We'll put the capital investment to turn that dumb light into a Swiss Army knife. And then we have the business model and the systems and the back-end systems and the security systems to collect all the data, create micro weather patterns, so you now are going to need, you'll be able to see, how's the cold flaring going on 6th Street, and where's the higher temperature, in the surroundings of the University of Texas, for example. Temperature on 35th Street is 75 degrees. Temperature on 21st Street is 78 degrees. We don't have that data. We don't have that granularity of data today. But that's where things are heading, right? And so more sensors everywhere, more granular information about everything. And all that information matters, and it matters to somebody. Where do you put the next nail salon? Where do you put the next Pizza Hut? Where do you put the next whatever, right? And so watching the traffic, seeing the dynamics of the city and the growth of the city, driven by leveraging the data and monetizing the data. And so, we are saying that this is all important because, new business models need to emerge. And Dr. Butler has been hounding me about this for years, that we need to really get serious about teaching cities. And we're trying to do that with the cities that we have been talking to for the last 10, 15 years. And many of them are in kind of their journey of monetizing their data. But really, it's a challenge that it takes time, and it's not it's not easy, because you need that internal champion to make things happen, right? So you have to really help folks realize the different building blocks. So we are in deep conversations with San Marcos and in Austin and CPS Energy and several other places. We've been trying to get the conversation heavy on, um, Brownsville, and we're talking to potentially Round Rock and New Braunfels and Dallas and Houston, and then several cities in Florida, Orlando, and um, many others. And it's a long sales cycle, but it's, I think, an interesting proposition that this infrastructure, which ultimately should be owned perhaps by somebody else, maybe it's mobility, maybe it's the mobility becomes a new utility within the construct of a county or a city, because the infrastructure helps more autonomous vehicles happening, and there is a big capital investment around autonomous vehicles and how you monetize them and manage them and maintain them and commercialize them. So, so smart street lights really add a lot of value, and if you make those lights also operational and not necessarily connected to the grid, meaning solar power, energy storage, now those lights can be put anywhere, right? So if you own land, rancher, if you want the ravine in the back of the house to be lit up, if you want to put lighting anywhere and connectivity anywhere, and you want to work next to the ravine on your Wi-Fi, wouldn't it be cool that you had lighting and you had your little camera system, and so that's really what's going to happen with this thing. And there are several vendors, and I don't know if Jeremy's still here. Jeremy was here earlier, and they're from Australia, and they're called PowerStack, and there are 10 companies trying to do it. But I think the widget guys that make the widgets are not the solution. It's really, somebody needs to come in and be a service provider for it. So CMG is becoming, or trying to become. We need to close some deals, but we're offering to be that service provider. So that's CMG doing that, and so streetlights have a incredible pent-up demand potential for delivering next generation technologies, and when you think about the digitalization of urban scenarios, and even places where, for example, GVEC, Guadalupe Valley Electric Co-op, is very interesting in the concept of there are many neighborhoods in their service territory where digging is very expensive because we have limestone rock in some places, and here in Central Texas, their service territory has a lot of rock, and they were saying, look, this neighborhood's kind of small, is way off the grid, so we would have to connect it, so it's going to cost like $3 or $4 million to connect to them, to basically stand up 20 light poles. And like, why are we going to pay a bunch of $1 million? Can we just buy your lights and put them there, and they are connected? And so it creates flexibility, right, for the grid operators as themselves, right? So the street lights come in all kinds of forms and shapes, and there are add-ons or full lamps or what have you, and you can they have all kinds of capabilities. But in the end, the concept is that you can really monetize this stuff and spend a lot of time really transforming other pieces of the ecosystem of digitalization, right? Imagine the ability, if all your streetlights were connected to communications, and you had people that are attending movies, restaurants, what have you, right? The whole notion of emergency management, security, kidnapping. I lost my kid. How many of you have been to Disney World and you lost your child? Anybody have been that? I lost mine once in Disney World. It did happen. My oldest got lost for like 30 minutes. We didn't know where she was. Some couple find her, and we're grateful. So I've always been. Would you wear a implant for GPS services for you? No. Would you put that in your grandkid chip neck? Okay, it's coming, right? All this stuff is coming. So the street lights being connected and having all this information really are powerful. And so we think that, again, the light of the future is this Swiss Army knife thing that I'm getting you dizzy to see. But I spend a lot of time talking to a lot of people about this. It's going to take 20 years for it to happen, but 20 years from now, or 15 or 10, when you hear that it's happening, you'll remember that you heard it here first. And we believe that we're going to be a player on this. We're very excited about the opportunity of helping bring the ecosystem of how this all comes about, one way, shape, or another. We have outside here at Cedar 20 of this, 16 of these street lights, and we're starting to do R&D with them. And so we're going to take all that infrastructure to the next level, how it interacts with other things that was not meant to interact with, and how we go about adding things to those lights that were not thought of before that could be added, either software or hardware. It's almost like when you think about how many of you 10, 15 years ago thought of Twitter or Instagram or TikTok, right? So if I deploy that infrastructure, and I have 100,000 of those, or 20,000 or 50,000 of those, the sky's the limit on what could happen with that infrastructure, right? And what kind of new applications are going to come in the mind of Dan or Gary or Brooks or whoever, right? And so lighting as a service is something that we're very interested in. If you think that you are interested in lighting as a service, then come talk to us. And that's it. Any questions? Yes, sir. Well, any greenfield city, a lot of the Middle Eastern countries are very interested in this. All the new smart cities, Telosa, we're gonna do it on. We're gonna try to do it here in Austin. There's a new city being built from scratch. We can talk more about it. There is Gate City. It's Belmont. Well, they're all talking about smart street lights, new infrastructure, so on. You had a question?
Yeah, when you talk about, street lights and, for example, transferring title of those street lights from a public entity to a private entity, there are a couple components to that, right? There's the grid interconnect, there's the asset itself.
The easement.
There's the grid interconnect, and there's the easement. How's that all going to get sorted out? Is a municipality going to be willing?
There are two models. We can do full ownership, or we can do just a franchise. The easiest thing is just a franchise, and the city gets a piece of the action, being the owner, part owner, whoever owns the easement. In the case of TxDOT, they own the easement. Right, TxDOT, if you think about it, I'll say here because Erica's here, she's heard me this, and I need to wrap it up. But TxDOT, with this infrastructure and the roads and autonomous, they should build their own network to manage all those vehicles in their own roads. They could be their own country. So TxDOT Texas could be its own state within the state of Texas, doing its own tax collections and all that. They have the authority to do that. So anyway, I just stop at that because I think that street lights as a Swiss Army knife is the next infrastructure that is going to play into the smart cars and all that. So think about it. Call me.